Three girls walked into a crowded shopping center 2 days before Christmas. There were cars everywhere. Families everywhere. Last-minute shoppers everywhere. Children, store clerks, holiday music, parking lot traffic, gift boxes, people rushing from one store to the next. And somehow, in the middle of all that noise, all that movement, all that ordinary life, three girls disappeared so completely that nearly half a century later, no one can say for certain what happened to them. No confirmed abduction. No bodies. No proven ransom. No final witness who saw the moment everything went wrong. Only a parked car. Christmas presents left behind. And a note that arrived the next day, a note the families never truly believed. This is the story of Rachel Trlica, Renee Wilson, and Julie Moseley, three girls who went shopping in Fort Worth, Texas on December 23, 1974 and were never seen again. And what makes this case so terrifying is not only that they vanished. It's that they vanished in a place where they should have been safe. A place full of people. A place full of light. A place where someone should have seen something. But if someone did, they never told the truth. To understand why this case has never let go of people, you have to picture the setting first. It was December in Fort Worth, Texas. 2 days before Christmas. The kind of day when shopping centers were packed, families were busy, and everything looked normal from the outside. It was not a remote road, not an empty field, not some isolated place where a disappearance feels easier to imagine. This happened in public. The girls were headed to Seminary South Shopping Center, a place that should have felt familiar and harmless. A place where thousands of people moved through stores, parking lots, walkways, and food areas without thinking twice. In cases like this, the setting matters. Because the more public the place, the more impossible the disappearance feels. This was not supposed to become one of Texas' most enduring mysteries. It was supposed to be an ordinary pre-Christmas outing. Just a few girls doing some last-minute shopping and coming back home in time for the holidays. Instead, it became the kind of story families tell with a shake of the head decades later, the kind of story where every anniversary feels unfinished, every Christmas feels wrong, and every theory feels like it's missing the one detail that would finally make everything make sense. The missing trio were not strangers randomly thrown together by fate. They were connected through family and friendship. 17-year-old Mary Rachel Trlica was the oldest. 14-year-old Lisa Renee Wilson was her friend. And 9-year-old Julie Moseley was the youngest, a child so young that her presence in this case still changes the emotional weight of everything. That age spread matters. Because when people first hear, three girls disappeared, they may picture three teenagers acting on the same impulse, making the same decision, or choosing the same risk. But Julie was only 9. And that single fact changes the emotional logic of the whole case. A 9-year-old does not fit easily into most runaway narratives. A 9-year-old also makes certain explanations much harder to believe. If this was a voluntary disappearance, why would a 9-year-old be included? If someone wanted to lure older girls, why take the youngest one too? And if anything sudden or violent happened, how did it happen without the kind of public reaction you would expect in a busy shopping area? Family members would later say Julie was never really supposed to be part of the plan. That detail is one of the eerie little fractures in this case, the kind of thing that makes people think about chance and timing. According to her family, Less threatening. If someone approached them, the presence of a child might have lowered suspicion for the girls themselves, for witnesses around them, or for the adults who saw them in passing. That's the kind of subtle detail that keeps this case alive in people's minds. Because sometimes what looks safer on the outside may actually make a group easier to manipulate. Terry Moseley said his mother carried the pain of letting Julie go for the rest of her life. That is one of the deepest emotional anchors in this case, not because it proves anything investigative, but because it reveals how ordinary parenting decisions can become unbearable when a case stays unsolved. As the hours passed, the expected return never happened. That's the point where ordinary concern turns into fear. At first, when someone is late, families create explanations to calm themselves. Traffic. Another store. One more stop. Maybe the girls got distracted. Maybe they lost track of time. Especially right before Christmas, with crowded roads and packed parking lots, a delay can feel frustrating but not alarming. But then the clock moves farther than it should. The excuses stop feeling believable. And the silence becomes the loudest part of the room. Rachel, Renee, and Julie never came home. For Julie's family, for Rachel's family, for Renee's family, this was the beginning of a nightmare that did not end in hours or days, but extended across decades. That is another reason this case hit so hard emotionally. There was no clear scene to absorb the shock. No confirmed crash. No discovered victim. No direct explanation. Just absence. And absence is a different kind of cruelty. It doesn't land all at once. It grows. Then came one of the most famous details in the case. Rachel's Oldsmobile was found in the parking lot at Seminary South. According to reporting from NBC News and KVUE, the car showed no outward signs of a struggle. And inside were Christmas presents the girls had apparently bought. That one detail reshapes the case instantly. Because if the girls planned to leave town voluntarily, why leave the car? Why leave gifts behind? Why vanish in a way that looks so abrupt and incomplete? If someone forced them into another vehicle, how did that happen without causing a disturbance that anyone clearly remembered? And if they left the parking lot willingly, who convinced all three of them to do it? The abandoned car has always felt like the frozen center of the mystery. It is the last solid thing left behind. A physical object. A location. A silent witness that cannot explain what happened next. In missing person cases, vehicles often tell a story. A forced entry. A wreck. Blood. Disturbance. But in this case, the car mostly told investigators what wasn't there. Not enough evidence. Not enough movement. Not enough clarity. Which can be even more unsettling than visible chaos. If the car created one mystery, the letter created another. The day after the girls disappeared, a handwritten note supposedly from Rachel arrived at the Trlica residence. According to later reporting, the note said the girls had to get away, that they were going to Houston, and that the car was in the Sears upper lot. At first glance, that might sound like a runaway letter. But almost immediately, the families doubted it. That doubt became one of the defining parts of the case. Family members said the note did not sound right. Rachel's own brother later said he did not believe his sister wrote it. NBC reported that Rachel's name was misspelled runaway explanation looked weaker and weaker. This is the section where many true crime retellings become irresponsible. They leap from uncertainty to certainty. They force a villain into the frame before the evidence earns it. We're not going to do that. What we can say is this: the strongest possibilities people return to usually revolve around one central idea, that the girls likely encountered someone, or multiple people, they either trusted, recognized, or did not immediately fear. Julie's brother Terry said he believed someone who knew them may have gotten them to go along. That is not a solved conclusion. But it is an important family perspective because it addresses the problem that has always sat at the center of the case: how do three girls, including a child, vanish from a busy mall without a loud public confrontation? If the girls got into another car willingly, maybe to meet someone, maybe under persuasion, maybe believing it was temporary, that could explain the lack of a dramatic witness account. It could also explain why the car was left in place instead of moved. But even that leaves enormous questions unanswered. Who? Why? Where? And how did the situation escalate from there? Another possibility long discussed is that the letter was created to buy time, either by someone connected to the girl's disappearance or by someone attempting to support a false narrative. Again, there is no conclusive public proof of that. But it's exactly the kind of detail investigators would have to weigh carefully, because false direction early in a case can destroy momentum. The worst part of this case is that so many possibilities feel plausible at first, and none of them close the circle completely. As years turned into decades, the disappearance of the Fort Worth trio stopped being just an active police mystery and became a lifelong burden carried by the families. That is a part of cold cases that often gets overshadowed by the facts. The world hears "unsolved" and thinks of police files, newspaper archives, and theories. Families hear "unsolved" and think of birthdays that never became birthdays, holiday dinners with empty spaces, and a future permanently divided into before and after. Rusty Arnold, Rachel's younger brother, spent much of his life trying to find answers. He has worked with search groups, maintained notes and clippings, and publicly said he wants closure before his mother dies. That kind of statement says everything you need to know about how long this case has lived inside one family. It is no longer just about the day they disappeared. It is about the people who have had to keep living without knowing. NBC reported that Rachel's mother placed 3 angels on the lawn at Christmas to symbolize the girls. It's hard to imagine a more painful holiday ritual, and also a more powerful image for what unresolved grief looks like when it has nowhere to go. Over the years, this case has produced what many old disappearances produce: waves of hope followed by disappointment. Anonymous tips. Possible locations. Searches of lakes. Old rumors. People convinced they've found the break that finally matters. But a cold case can be cruel in the way it handles hope. It gives families just enough movement to keep believing, then pulls the ground away again. KVUE reported that in April 1975, an anonymous tip claimed the girls' bodies had been buried under a bridge in Port Lavaca. Police and volunteers searched. Nothing connected to the girls was found. Years later, new searches continued. WFAA reported on Rusty Arnold's efforts and lake searches, including vehicles pulled from water that ultimately had no connection to the girls. Even when those searches failed, the motivation behind them remained the same: if there is any chance at all, you keep looking. That is one of the most emotionally exhausting things about long unsolved disappearances. The case doesn't really end. It just continues in smaller bursts of grief and hope. Most cold cases fade in public memory. This one didn't. Part of that is because of how bizarre it is. 3 girls from different ages. A crowded shopping center. An abandoned car. Christmas gifts inside. A note nobody trusted. But another part is because the story touches something universal: the fear that ordinary life can suddenly become unrecognizable. That a simple errand can become the last known moment of a person's life. That a public place can still swallow people whole if the wrong person, the wrong moment, and the wrong decision align. And then there is the timing. This happened just before Christmas. That matters. Because Christmas is a holiday built around return, family returning home, lights turning on, gifts being opened, names being called across a house. A disappearance that happens at that exact moment feels like an attack on normal joy itself. Every year after that, the holiday stops being just a holiday. It becomes an anniversary of unfinished pain. That's why this case lasts. Not just because it is unsolved, but because it feels like it should have been solvable. Today, the Fort Worth missing trio remains one of Texas' most haunting unsolved missing persons cases. WFAA reported that the Fort Worth Police Department considers it an ongoing investigation. Modern family interviews show that even after 50 years, surviving relatives still speak with the same mix of disbelief, grief, and determination. There's also something important in how the families talk about this case now. They don't sound like people chasing every rumor. They sound like people who have spent decades watching theories come and go, and who understand that speculation alone will never solve it. Terry Moseley said he believes the case may only be solved if the person responsible comes forward and can prove what happened. That statement is bleak, but honest. And honesty is what gives a documentary like this its power. Because the truth is, this case